Back in the garage today, back in the garage today. What's going on, guys? Back in the garage today. Before we get started, shameless plug for these 2WR ADV hoodies. They're available in that little Teespring block below the video. I've got one in blue, I've got one in orange, we've got them available in other colors. They're great for the fall and winter, super comfy. If you're looking for a good Christmas present for someone or for yourself, send this video over to your wife. That way she can order you one for Christmas. So anyway, before I get into today's video, you guys know I do the Back in the Garage series. I do a lot of maintenance, how-to, those sorts of things. But I know we've got some folks that aren't like super comfortable working on their own bikes, so I want to go over some basics in a new series. These videos will come out over the course of the next few months. In today's video, and even if you've been working on your own bikes, hopefully you learned something from this. But in today's video, I'm going to call it like my most used chemicals that I use here in the garage. I'm going to show you what they are and kind of explain why it is I use them and how I use them. In most cases, it won't be brand specific, except for like maybe one or two cases, so pay attention when I talk about that. Otherwise, just whatever is available at your local auto parts store or Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, that sort of thing will be just fine. So let's get into the video. All right, so let's start up here on this shelf where I have brake cleaner. I've actually got a couple of types of brake cleaner here. Again, brand doesn't really matter. What do I use brake cleaner for? Simple. I use it to clean up really dirty stuff. Yeah, you can use a parts washer, but I know a lot of you probably don't have one. Also, this stuff is relatively cheap. The price has gone up recently here locally. It used to be about $2 a can. Now it's about $2.50 a can. It's great for all sorts of things, whether you're cleaning out around your pegs where you got a bunch of dirt and mud, or you're cleaning out around the carburetor on your dirt bike, or you're actually using it for its intended purpose to clean up brake parts. This stuff is awesome. It cuts your cleaning time in half. You don't have to sit there and scrub, though scrubbing is sometimes still necessary. It'll clean through just about anything. So why do I have two different kinds? Well, this is chlorinated and this is non-chlorinated, and there's a reason I have two different kinds. The non-chlorinated version of brake cleaner is basically not nearly as flammable. I'm not going to say it's not flammable because I've still caught some things on fire here and there, but it's definitely way less flammable than the chlorinated kind. So why don't I just buy this if it's safer? Well, it's a simple matter of dollars and cents. This stuff usually costs about 50 to 75% more a can than what this costs. Last time I bought this was $2 a can. This was about $3 a can. Sometimes it can run a little bit more than that. Obviously, it comes down to, what brand you're using, where you're buying it. So I like to keep this stuff on hand. If I'm working away from the engine and, things aren't going to get hot there, or I'm just working on parts away from the bike that don't have anything to do with the motor, I'll use this stuff to save a few bucks. If I'm working on a hot bike or I'm working somewhere around the engine where there's the chance you're going to get that temperature, you're going to get that spark, I'll use this to knock down the chances that I'm going to catch something on fire. Additionally, this is good to use if you're cleaning up your wheels or around your brake area, and maybe you're replacing wheel bearings and you've got to heat that hub up a little bit. Definitely go with the non-chlorinated. So anyway, first chemical I use probably most often in here is brake clean. All right, so next up, we're going to come down here to this area on the shelf and some other stuff that you should definitely have. You're going to work on your own bikes. The brand name is typically Loctite, but it's Threadlocker. You really should have two kinds on hand at all times. The blue one, which is the medium strength, and the red one, which is the high strength. You notice they both come in blue containers, but this one does have a little bit of red on it. Your service manual will call for which one you need at any given time, but you should definitely keep both of these on hand. Now, the medium strength's good. The high strength will definitely hold things in place, and it all comes down to the fasteners you're putting in. And then there's the green, which is you never want that damn bolt to move again. Also good to have on hand. Something else that's good to have is anti-seize. Now this is a bigger container. You can buy it in small containers. This container has a brush inside. What I like to use this for are for bolts that are going to be exposed to the elements. So things like the bolts that hold your handlebars down, the bolts that hold your hand guards on, that you don't want to seize up. You put a little bit of this on the threads, put them in. Even if water, dirt, stuff gets in there, it's not going to lock them into place, and you're not going to have to worry about breaking anything or having to drill any bolts or anything out. You're always going to be able to remove them when you need to make adjustments or swap out parts. All right, so another product I have sitting down here is something called Dielectric Grease, which some of you may have heard of, but I know a lot of people haven't. This stuff should definitely be in your garage, if not on your bike. Dielectric Grease is awesome stuff. What this is used for are on your electrical connections of your motorcycle, because unlike a car, a lot of your engine, a lot of your components, a lot of your electrical components are exposed on a motorcycle to the elements. What I use this for are the plugs that are exposed to the elements. Put a little bit of dielectric grease, and if you've never seen it, it's kind of a clear substance. Put that on your electrical connections. It seals out the water, moisture, those sorts of things, so you don't have to worry about an electric failure on your motorcycle, whether it's your fuel pump or whatever it may be. This stuff is great to have. It's very cheap. This bottle or tube should last you a really long time. Definitely check into some dielectric grease. Another thing I like to keep in my garage at all times is some sort of penetrating oil. Now this is PB Blaster. This stuff's great, but any sort of brand's gonna work. It smells awful. It should have one of those little spouts on it, but either way, if you've got a bike that's been sitting outside, or you bought a bike that's got a lot of rusted up nuts and bolts and those things on them that are tough to get out, spray this stuff on it, let it seep down in there. It's gonna make your life a lot easier getting those stuck fasteners out. All right, so I said at the beginning of the video, for the most part, brands don't count, but when it comes to lube, you definitely want to go with JB80. This is one of the best lubricants I have ever used in the garage. It's awesome. It's going to get rid of all sorts of squeaks or anything you may have, but what I really like to use it for is after we finish washing the bikes, whether it's the dirt bikes, street bikes, whatever, is I go around and spray a little bit of this on all of the pivot points. So if you've got a fold-in shifter tip, I spray it on there. I spray it on the brake pedal. I spray a little bit in the brake and clutch levers. I spray a little bit, on Noah's bike because he's got a Kickstarter. I spray a little bit in there. This stuff is great. Can't recommend it enough. Other than the fact that it's like 12 bucks a can, really have no complaints out of it. Doesn't get any better than this. There are other things out there that work, but I haven't found anything that works as well as JB80. The only place I can find it locally is at the Napa Auto Parts store. So you might be able to get this online, but if you can get your hands on some of this, definitely put this in your garage. All right, so in this video, last but certainly not least, Honda Bond. And this is another one where I'm gonna recommend this exact brand. There are other high temp silicones out there, but this is the best I have ever used. You can, some of these things I'll try to link below if I can find links to them so you can get the exact thing. It's basically a silicone liquid gasket. You can actually use this, and I'll use it a little bit sometimes when I'm doing, valve checks and those sorts of things to get that valve cover gasket back on in a couple of areas. If you've got a leak somewhere and you're out on the trail or you're out on a big trip, in most cases, this is going to seal it up pretty well. So it's good to get you out of a pinch until you can get home and fix it properly. It's also good just to have as a preventative maintenance thing to make sure those gaskets do stick in place when you're putting an engine back together or whatever the case may be. I think this is under 20 bucks. It's going to last you quite a long time. Can't recommend Honda Bond enough. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you did, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, considering that subscribe button, because if you like motorcycles, well, this is the place to be. If you have any questions about anything I went over, let me know down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. And as always, I'll talk to you again soon. Oh yeah, and one more chemical, bourbon, because if the job's not going well, just drink a couple of these, you'll feel better, and try working on it again the next day.